says it's working now, she'll.
He didn't do anything, I swear.
Okay.
But it was.
So on your lid edit with the cash balance, it's up, okay. So with the cash balance left and the amount of appropriations, you're looking at about $524,000. If there's an $88,000 change in appropriation, you have to subtract it down to that number. Lid edit, and then the amount that's in Riverboat, and Riverboat is $257,000. Those are your two areas. If for some reason, I'm not saying you will, but if for some reason the general fund does not make it till the spring, these will be your two areas, and those are your amounts, and these are half years. You still have to get all the way to December. So, kind of conclusion on here. Everything is in a positive balance. Everything is in where you want it to be. The appropriations that the county council put out for the first month, they look very consistent. I mean, as far as when you're looking at group insurance, you're looking at any different area, they are matching up well. There's nothing standing out after only 1 month saying this is a mess, that's not appropriated. It looks like this budget was very realistic. I know that was put in there, but it looks like it's following well. There is not a huge surplus at all. That does not exist. Where you would want to move or do or look appropriations, it's going to be somewhat limited, okay? You have, again, about $250,000 for an entire year in Riverboat. You have in the range, depending on the appropriation things, somewhere in the range of $400,000 to $500,000. But that money is not all in yet. That comes in monthly. It's not even in yet that you were looking at. In the public safety, you got a $65,000 window of appropriations. That is it. I mean, there's no other way. There's nothing more going to happen in that way. So, I guess what I would ask from the council, if you want for me to continue to monitor, I would. I think there's some key factors. Have to look each month of what is that difference between expenditures and receipts in the general fund. That's the key one to look at. Now, nothing that has to be decided tonight in any way, but as far as direction. One of the areas is your 1151 fund and EMS. The EMS fund is the best way I can describe it, is a standalone fund right now, meaning it's not included in the general fund. From every financial consultant that you've had that's looked at this, from Crow to Peters and myself as tonight, one of the options is, and I'm not saying it's a good option, and I'm not saying it's a bad option. All I'm saying is there's an option of, does the council want to consider or look in, nothing more, of moving the EMS into the general. Why would I even bring that up is just that at some point, it's possible the jail project or the loans, this is going to be one of the areas where financial institutions will look, and it will be confusing of a general fund that's going to even or lower than one of the outstanding funds. There's also an issue as far as the amount of money going into the bucket, as far as what's going in the EMS compared to the general. So I'm not asking you to move it. I'm not even suggesting to move it. But the first step is always, obviously the first step. So I guess what I'm asking as a council, do you want this even looked at all? Or you would want input from everyone, on this if you want to do it, or is it just something that you're not? The only reason I'm bringing it up, it has been presented by at least 2 other financial areas as something that doesn't make sense as far as the way our fund balances look at the county. It may be a difficulty as far as obtaining a loan, and if we're looking at some point on a jail project of asking for that amount, that is just going to be a question come up. You don't even have to say, if you just want to move on, where you've talked enough, that's fine too. But it's sometime in March, April, or whatever, I would need an answer just in, do you want this reviewed or not? That's the only thing kind of sticking out. The other ones, on the appropriations, working very carefully with the auditor, on those of matching. But this is really where you want it to be. come January. It really is. The budget that you presented is not off. These are matching. We want to watch things very carefully, but 1 month is not a trend, but really good news from the first month. Good news, not great news. There's no pot of gold coming. There's no huge surplus anywhere. But these have ended a 2.5-year trend of month after month in the red. You're 3/4 in positive balance, and your budgets are matching up. There is just, and I'll quiet now, but very minimal room for error in any of these areas. If anything, asking, it's very, very minimal, and we really need about 2 months worth of data to kind of track out the remainder of the year.
Thank you, Jim. Sheila, do you mind, I mean, I know you kind of talked to BGLF about I am gonna go on record, I'm not in favor for moving Chris's fund. I've kind of talked to some of the different, I'd like to see another avenue. But even at that, I think you've emailed.
I did email in general, to DLGF. They came back with it's DLGF and State Board of Accounts, kind of a partial on both sides of what you can do. She said it would be very difficult to increase it mid-year because you would have to do additional appropriations in the county general fund, and our current cash balance would maybe not carry that. She said looking at it possibly in 2023, but that because we've moved a large budget, being the sheriff's of almost $3 million out of there to turn around and put in a $1.89 million, I think it is, budget. We really didn't gain anything. Where would we gain the difference was some of the general conversation. Tax rate and all of that would not change. It wouldn't affect that part because he's not part of the county general fund. He's on that tax levy roll. So if he was to be pulled in there, that would open up that tax levy roll pie portion, so to say, to some of the other funds that are.
So that would not follow him in?
No, that would
Right.
not follow. So they didn't flat say, no, you couldn't do it. They couldn't understand why we moved out of a $3 million budget to move into $2 million, not knowing if we were gonna be able to build the cash balance back up in the general fund. And probably could not happen before settlement came in. But they didn't say, no, you couldn't do it either.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Polly, because especially mid-year would be tough anyway, even if you
Right.
wanted to do it. But the thing that I'm concerned about this year, and again, the aggregate total is gonna be the same, but when the state approved our rates, the EMS rate was unusually high now, and the general was unusually low. So when that settlement comes in June, and again in December, you're gonna have a very large amount of money going into EMS that I don't think was necessarily intended. Jim?
Right, I mean, that's
kind of what you touched on a second ago.
Right, that's the same thing that consultants are looking at. This fund from 1151 is going to go in that direction. The general is not going to go up that much. Now, again, something to look at, looking at in August of this year, of taking a look, and that sounds fine, but I just think it's probably important that everyone's aware, of that rate, and that's one of the concerns, again, by the other two financial institutions, were, are you sure you want this amount of money going in one particular fund as compared to the general fund?
Yeah, and I think what happened, I'm just guessing, is that based on the numbers that were advertised and then what budgets we wound up approving, the state saw, well, EMS has a big obligation and that's where the rate should be, and then they cut the general.
Right.
But we were really originally wanting to have a cushion there to build that back up. And so I think that got overlooked somewhere in that process. But again, the aggregate's not less, and the total's fine, it's just in a different place. So.
Okay. Well, that sounds fine, that's all I need to know on that, and just drop that for the year, and go on.
We've got ARPA funds down here. Do we want to discuss any more of that?
Look, I can just give you a quick, there's an ARPA plan before the commissioners. It was on the 7th, it was tabled, it's going to be revisited on the 21st. I would anticipate a decision made on the 21st as far as the plan distribution. And then once that plan is approved, then groups or individuals can make their, in essence, their presentation to the commissioners. Then it comes back to you as the county council as to make the final appropriation. So my anticipation would be, yes, it's 100% on the agenda on the 21st. I would anticipate a decision made in some fashion on the 21st for that plan. And then you as a county council, maybe in March, maybe in April, may receive actual appropriation requests.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, on to new business. We need to open, I'm going to open a public hearing for additional appropriation for highway this point.
Okay, the additional appropriation that we asked for was $83,000, is in regard to the community crossing grant. In order to try to receive the full $1 million, we need to have $300,000 available as our contribution. As years in the past, so we usually haven't got a full $1 million, but very close, so we may need the full amount, we may not, but we have to have the commitment from the county in regard to the grant.
You guys made that commitment at your last meeting. This is just the second step in the process to do the additional appropriation.
So we need a, okay. Do we have any public comments? If there are none, we move on. We need to make a motion for that.
Yes. Well, I'll make a motion that we proceed in appropriating $83,323 from Lit Edit Fund cash balance 7332 to line 733241000.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, council.
That was our only. So at this time, I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to the 2022 compensation structure review.
So in your packets, you have an updated report dated February 14th of 2022. And this is pretty much the same report format as the one for our January meeting. But on pages 4 and 5, since we know a little bit more from the direction the council took in January, we kind of expanded step number 3, which is the conversion process. And there's a number of items there. It's not an exhaustive list or a complete list, but it's some examples of things that the council should consider in some fashion or another on a number of different parts to that. Some of them include some internal technical things that the auditor had brought up. Some things have been brought up here in meetings over the last several months. Others are from department heads directly, and then a lot of them are from the consultant's recommendations of the report that was completed about 1.5 years ago. There'd been some talk about maybe utilizing a committee, and I think that that's a good idea. I would suggest that you have some kind of a committee put together that can maybe address those items and maybe try to make sure there aren't any others that need to be included. I would suggest that you include the auditor and the deputy auditor that handles payroll and benefits, because she's pretty intimately involved with the operations day-to-day. I, of course, would be happy to be a part of that, and our council president should be on that, and whoever else the council thinks would be appropriate.
I would like to see some of the department heads as well as the employees to be included in this committee. I think it's imperative that the employees have a voice. I think they've kind of felt alienated and have not felt like they have been heard. And so I think that's a very important part of this committee.
Any volunteers?
We could, and, I mean, let's see, how do we need to go about this? Because I do want to, include everybody that wants to be a part of it, because I think that's important. Sounds good.
We can send out an email, this is just a suggestion, just send out an email to the elected officials and department heads and ask them if they wish to sit on there or appoint one of their staff members and just to reply and let you guys know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe it's something where, I mean, really, every department would want to be
Included in the
involved,
project,
so,
yeah.
whether it's the department heads themselves or someone they designate, that's probably not a bad idea. And really, I mean, it's not a committee that has a formal decision-making authority, but it's an advisory type thing, and it's the ability to open up discussion. So as long as you have someone that leads that discussion and gets things out of folks and gets those put together in notes, and then the committee would have some kind of a report back to the council, that would probably be a better approach, I think.
So, Sheila, why don't you go ahead and send out an email to all the ones and gather the names and then let me know?
Do we want to go ahead and set the other thing is time is a concern. I know some department heads have expressed some concerns that involve, retention. And, is there a time element to this, or when maybe the first meeting you'd kind of want to shoot for having, or?
Yeah, I would like to, have this put together and have it going before our next meeting, if that would be possible. How's that sound for everybody?
So do we want to wait to set a kind of a time, or?
Well, we need to gather the names first, so we can, and then,
The auditor would
Just tell them we need it immediate.
probably advertise it to be safe, because there may be more than, yeah, Jim's agreeing. There may be more than 2 council members, 2 commissioners, that kind of thing, so you want to be legal. So.
That's the problem is getting.
Newspaper has changed their dates, they were new on Wednesdays, now you have to have everything to them on Mondays in order to get in the following week's paper. So if I
Be 2 weeks.
send them something tomorrow, it isn't gonna make the paper until next
Next Wednesday.
23rd. So we couldn't do anything before the 23rd.
Should we want to act quickly on that?
Well,
Could you go ahead and just set a date and time, and then for those that could volunteer?
that's a good idea. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
People are going to make it one way or another.
If employees are gonna be on it, for those of us that worry about comp time, if you could do 15 hours of 8 to 4, so you're not gonna have employees that are gonna, we'll take them out of our office, but at least they're not gonna be putting in extra hours that we have to compensate for.
Okay.
What about like an 8:30 or a 9? We'll probably,
I think it takes more time during that time to,
That sounds good.
yeah, so, should we just pick a date?
Yeah. The only dates I will be out of town is the 24th and 25th. Other than that, I can,
There are no meetings scheduled as of right now the week of the 28th, day or night.
okay.
How about, because Mondays are probably kind of tough for coming in on a Monday. What about
See
Tuesday?
the March the 1st?
Yes.
How's that sound, everybody?
Does that sound pretty good? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that basically includes what we just talked about, so I don't have to repeat all of it. Which to highlight would give the auditor the go-ahead to advertise for March 1st at 9 o'clock to have our committee meeting.
Second? Seconded by Nick. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried.
In the meantime, I would recommend making sure you read the report and
Right.
update and add things to your list that you may think about that can be brought up or discussed some more on that.
Summary of it.
And then Jim, you had some things you wanted to share on wages and.
Oh, just simply that, one outline, if the council had any questions, but I did submit an outline to the council, just kind of going over the statutory provisions and more. I'm not trying to impose myself, and I don't have to
I would-
support the committee, but if you'd like me just to be there, someone.
Yes.
We would definitely like you to be there,
I
definitely.
think you're required.
March 1st, not
And if it's okay, Madam President, I want to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the salary confirmation summaries that's further down since we're on the subject of wages. There were only 3 employee-related changes to account for, so.
Motion made and seconded to accept them. Any discussion?
They're in the green folder.
Okay. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay,
Holly,
yes,
real quick,
uh-huh,
can we get a copy of that report that Anton's talking about when Sheila sends out?
Sheila will send it out.
An email to department heads, so we,
Yep.
if we're on the committee, we know what we're going into.
yes, that's a good idea, sounds, be all right, Sheila, thank you. Okay, next, circuit court employee compensation.
So in light of the formation of this committee, and then to the council's policy with regard to providing materials at least by noon, Wednesday before the meeting, we are gonna request that our specific request be tabled until a later date. But I did wanna just mention a few things, especially since we were talking very briefly about the ARPA money, and I know we have some commissioners here. And also just to sort of float a concept for the council to be thinking about and considering. One of the things, and Anton mentioned this, about forming a committee that it does concern us a little bit is just the length of time that these things tend to take when a committee gets started, and I just don't want departments to be hamstrung in coming up with solutions. And I do think that we've done the work to come up with a plan that is fundable without putting additional pressure on the general fund. And I just want to encourage the council to be open, even though we are talking about a kind of a comprehensive plan moving forward. I would encourage the council to be open to department heads coming up with solutions and to provisionally dealing with some of these issues on a department by department basis with an eye towards the future and a comprehensive plan. But I do think you don't wanna limit yourselves in terms of being able to solve some of these problems. If you can do it incrementally, I think you should be open to that. The other thing I would mention is the state and local recovery funds for ARPA. That the final rule that was promulgated does allow basically the lost revenue, basically up to $10 million standard allowance. So our whole award, we could just say was lost revenue and we could use it to pay for government services. And I know that there's a proposal, at least my understanding, I wasn't at the last commissioners meeting and that could have changed, but there was a proposal that $300,000 be used for one-time bonuses for employees as like hazard pay.
Yeah, premium pay.
And I would also encourage the council to consider, and the commissioners, to the extent that that's their decision also, to consider using that in a different way and using that to fund some of these raises. Because a one-time bonus is great, but if we could use it to get started on these raises, because you saw the wage study, you know, it's just, we are woefully inadequately compensating employees. And if we could, I think it would be a good opportunity if we were to take that money and perhaps rather than using it as a one-time bonus, give the department heads an opportunity to come up with a solution and say, we have earmarked $300,000. Come up with a solution to get raises for your employee within your own budget. We'll give you X amount per department to work with. So, you know, for instance, let's say you can make some changes, you can rearrange some things in your budget, you can reprioritize things, and you can give everybody meaningful raises, and it costs the general fund $10,000. Okay, well, you've got $10,000 of ARPA money earmarked for your department. Let's do it. Let's fix it. Let's move forward in a provisional way, instead of just saying, hey, you worked here on December 6th. Here's a couple $1,000 and don't ask for a raise in the next 3 years. So, I mean, I think that's something we're thinking about, and we are going to be coming back and asking for the raises that we asked for before, but we just want to table that to another time and give you all the proposal in a timely fashion, and also
We want to be on the next, I think, March 28th, maybe the next meeting, that gives us a chance to do the March 1st meeting. I said, we've already got somewhat of a plan, but I do think that the department had stepped up when we made the cuts. You saw what we were all capable of when we all worked together and talked and said, I can offer up this and you can offer up that. And I think that if that $300,000 bucket's there, you know, if we need $5,000 and, you know, the auditor needs 10, then, or 15, they can take that extra 5. We can all work together where then we can make meaningful pay parity, so we're not gonna lose people. But I also think it's obligations on the department heads. We all know where the general fund is, that we've gotta find a way to absorb a lot of that cost. And so this should be like a percentage, a 5% or something to that amount, which then's not gonna change anything with that money, but can make a big lifestyle difference for the employees. I mean, I think you got like 10 departments or 11 departments actually. And so if you look at a 5% or 10% of that $300,000, I think you're easily gonna find most people can absorb most of it. They just need a little boot, and that's the money that could easily go for it. And then it takes that burden off of you guys later on to try to implement the wages. We paid for the wage study, it's got some good information, it's a little bit obsolete, but at least we can hit the midpoint and look at that and kind of do that across the board and maybe complete a plan on March 1st. That everybody can then refactor their budgets to look at that, so that then everybody can come out ahead on this. And that's why we want to table it now, so we can kind of talk to everybody else as well.
And I think the employees will understand that there is a larger plan in the works. And that if you were to approve something provisionally, that's exactly what it is. It's a provisional plan until we get a full, holistic, big picture plan in place. But, you know, the private sector is dealing with this. They have had this reckoning. We are experiencing the reckoning as employers, but we have no ability to do anything about it because we don't control the money. And so that's allowing office heads to come up with these solutions provisionally and quickly would be a huge benefit.
Make sure to be there March 1st. We
With
appreciate it.
that, with that premium pay, Jim, I mean, is that even something that would be even doable to, or does it have to be a one-time bonus?
So, in respect to things, let me show what I meant. So, in the ARP plan, there's basically 5 buckets, and the terms mean something different in each bucket. Premium pay is, in essence, exactly, it would be more of a one-time, say in 2022, premium pay is being awarded based upon COVID issues. The other bucket, though, as far as the retention of, you know, the reimbursement of lost revenue, that's an entirely different bucket. I don't know how much that has been explored as far as what's being asked on there. The premium pay, though, it's very clear. It looks exactly like a bonus, but it is not. It's not. It has to be based on, are you full-time, are you part-time, what classification, how many hours, and it's a paying back. You worked in COVID, rather than say you make $10 an hour, the fact that you dealt with all these COVID type situations, we're gonna give you premium pay of X amount up to 2001. Going now, looking and making that part of a salary would have absolutely nothing to do with premium pay. This would be the other bucket as far as the $2 million rule. And like I said, I'm candid, I have no problem saying I don't know, and I'll say that quite well. I don't know because that's not been explored too much in that direction of what is all allowable. It was a big change in the rule. It was, you can't, and it would be impossible to use loss recovery. Department of Treasury said, no, we changed our mind, up to 10 million, it's back up to you county. I would respectfully say that's about as far as it is. It's back to you, in this case, Owen County.
Yeah, which the $10 million, I mean, that exceeds our award by millions of dollars.
Right.
So, I mean, that's not even basically, my understanding of it would just be, your whole award is now lost revenue, and it can be used for government services accordingly.
But is that something that we would need to,
Well, I'm gonna be crystal clear. First of all, it's 100% in the discretion of the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners makes the plan, the buckets. Owen County, it's a little bit more, but Owen County is getting $4 million plus a little bit. Owen County has $2 million now, expects $2 million more. But the Board of Commissioners makes the determination of the buckets. Once that is done, the Board of Commissioners then hears the proposals. They then, yea or nay, on those that have said, we would like to do this, then that particular presentation comes to the council and says, in this case, let's just use premium pay, we're asking $300,000 be now appropriated out of that fund to be then allotted for premium pay. This would then be a determination if it's all placed in lost revenue, recover of revenue of what presentations were decided. I do not know, and again, I can only tell you, what I don't know, I'm not 100% sure how this would work if it's going to be used for, in essence, salary payments. That I would have to look into that quite a bit so I could, really articulate something that would make sense. So at this point, premium pay, I think that's being considered as a bucket very strongly. I don't see if there's any change of any kind on that. But this is something separate or new that would be going before the commissioners.
Gary?
If we use some of this for departments to get raises, and everybody knows I'm all for people making more money, how do we sustain?
That's
once this
my
money's
next
gone?
question. That's
There's
the
no
only-
problem, we
It's
cannot,
only one time.
it's one time, and that's why we're trying to do the premium pay. There's no money there to continue raising.
How do we ever give people raises then? I mean,
Well,
if we
hopefully-
can't
Well,
pay,
we'll get down the hole.
if we
Yeah.
can't pay raises, we can't pay raises.
And I think that's how much boost you need. If you're talking $10,000 and you can look and see what departments have given back each year, and that's part of the proposals when they bring it to you, and so you can see how much money's there. It may be that there may be enough money to pull it out 2 years, and hopefully in 2 years, if we spend our money wisely, you'll have the general fund, that, sheriff's is out of the budget now and those kind of things. Yeah, I think you need to have a 2-year plan when somebody's bringing it to you. I'm just saying that bucket can be swapped in some ways. Perhaps you could look at the ARPA money for that, because we all know that grants are out there and they'll give you 100 computers and 100 shovels, but they won't give you the manpower. This is one time that you've got money that can actually be allocated to get it to the employees in the way that it needs. And so that's what we're asking.
And I'm not here to mess up the commissioner's plan to the extent that they have one. I'm just saying that everybody should understand, and it should be made known that that final rule basically does approve our entire award to be used basically with no strings attached, if it were to be put in that lost government revenue bucket, which is, and I don't know where that stands, and I don't know how kind of final the commissioner's decision is on that, but that is, the final rule does allow it.
I was thinking also that we got into an issue with lost revenue, that it created another audit situation. We have to bring somebody in and audit our books to show lost revenue, so that's an expense of that
That's
ARPA
not
money as
correct
well.
under the final rule. The final rule does not require that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advantages Now, if that happening, Gary, is we don't have
I
to
know
do
that
that.
was originally part of
Yeah.
the plan.
Right.
I think it might be.
And we've hired Myers and Thornburg to deal with this, and they'll be the final decision, 90 of the 90
They know,
counties have hired them, they know. So that's who we're working with, and we'll continue to work with. We pay them $2,500 a month, every month.
So would it behoove a group of us internally to try to get together before next Monday night and have a generic plan? If you guys are making a decision next Monday night, do we need to?
Something needs to be presented because a decision needs to be made, because here's the problem for everyone in here. The inflation rate is eating our lunch.
Yeah.
All right, we're trying to get roads and bridges built, and the longer we put this plan off, especially with the bridges and the roads, that's a bidding process. That thing takes 4 to 6 months to get that out. By the time that stuff hits, instead of a bridge costing us $150,000, now it's costing us $225,000. So it's constantly eating that money away for every day that we go.
And I agree, our employees can't eat lunch because of that same inflation, so that's why I think it's important that we look at that too.
Yeah,
And if we can figure out some way to sustain it, I'm all for it, but this is one-time money, so it's gonna be very, very difficult. And that's why we were saying that we had to get through this year before we could even realize any kind of pay raises. As bad as I hate to say that, that was a discussion that was back in August of last year. I don't know where the money's gonna come from, that's your guys' issue, not mine.
And that's why we'd say if you can bring a proposal then that doesn't require that money or general fund money, then you need to look at those office heads that can do it at this point, because some just cannot wait another year, it's just that simple.
and that's the thing with like if we are allocating $300,000 for bonuses, or if that's something that's on the table, I'm saying maybe we should rethink how we use that $300,000 and just let the office heads try to come up with plans to.
So what you're
use that
wanting
money
is like
to get through this year.
that 300,000 instead of being premium pay be into that's the only thing, I guess my concern about this, is sustainability. And also that I would like for them to get the money in hand just as soon as possible, cause I agree with you. It's heartbreaking how our rates are, and so I guess that's one of my concerns is I would like to get this in their hands as soon as possible. But you've brought up a lot of good points.
I'd say it's
know.
something to consider.
It is an interesting idea. I think the one time is definitely a real concern, and I know just from past, we're talking 10, 15 years ago, discussion on wages and whether you do one time or non, what kind of money source do you use? Using one-time money always bit us in the butt because it was done once it was given. So we want to be very careful with that.
Yeah, that's why it's gotta be a small percentage.
I think here, though, it's more or less for looking back because think about it, the prior year, there wasn't a raise anyway, and then everybody had to work through COVID. So it's kind of a way to plug something that should have been given that couldn't. And so that's something, and is what it'll be used for. But I think for the moving forward part, it'd be a tougher thing to link up.
And the only other thing I'll mention about it is that I know it is the council's sort of worst nightmare to have every department come and be like, here's why you should give us a raise. But it does allow you to really look at the proposal, look at what they're doing with their budget, consider, so if, just for the sake of argument, we were using that $300,000, consider that pot of money, consider the sustainability, and at least try to get the offices that can get something going.
Well, I think that meeting, March 1st, if all the department head comes and shows up, maybe they'll have ideas there to work, and maybe your suggestion, your other department head might agree or something, That's,
we can figure it out probably without that money, we've done that, we can present that tonight, we're gonna wait, but I'm just trying to be fair to some of the other offices to try to figure out a way, I don't think it's so horrible, everybody comes to you, because we learned an awful lot at that meeting where we made cuts. When we all worked together, we got in that room together, and we said, what can we give up? And we started talking about working as a group, and people agreed to share people, or they agreed to offer up this and that. we learned something that we can all work
And
together.
it worked.
If we can do that again, I
It
think
worked.
we can get raises for everybody as well, and make it so that then it's not gonna be a burden on the taxpayers or anybody else. We can do it, I just wanna be able to help other people be able to do it as well.
And I think that's a good point. I mean, I think when we did get everybody together, everybody was able to, bounce ideas off, and I think that's, something I'd like to see happen again.
That is a nice thing with a comprehensive plan. The other two is that you want to get to the point where you have a pretty clean financial impact analysis, so you know if you're gonna make these kind of adjustments, it's gonna cost X. That will help department heads determine how much they have to come up with,
Right.
maybe,
Right.
or how close they might be.
Midpoint versus high point.
Yeah,
And everybody knows how you're shooting in a pass.
Right, so I think, and that's a little bit of a later step, but I think we need to keep moving towards that. But it's never too early to start thinking about that and coming up with some of those ideas, so.
One office can do it quicker, then it takes the burden off for the next office that comes in. So, that's kind of how I like it. So, appreciate your time.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion to postpone that for the record, or
I don't know, did they even, or were you
for
just?
regular March meeting? I'll go ahead and make a motion, we postpone the circuit court item to our regular March meeting for the agenda.
Nick seconded. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, on to the PTBOA board,
Peter Boyd.
Dusty board.
Oh,
Here we go.
there's a lag out there on the
Oh,
internet,
yeah.
forgive me. Pretty easy, I'm here to ask you to appoint Peter Board, Suzanne Simmerman and Margie Tucker. Both of which have been on previous,
Thank you, Dusty.
so.
I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Suzanne Simmerman and Margie Tucker to the Peterboa Board.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Earl. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
That was easy.
there you go. Thank you, Dusty. All right. 911, Kathleen?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Highway Department, where'd he go?
I don't have anything further to say.
Sheriff's Department.
Oh, yeah. I'll try to keep it brief. Got my mask on. I got a couple of questions about the budget that I'm really concerned with. Jim, you can help me out here a little bit. You talked about the insurance is all coming due in March, is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, most likely by mid-March, the end of March, the actual bill should be coming in, yes.
That's for the full year?
For workman's comp for the full year, for general liability, it should be quarters. It should be divided by 4.
Okay. So for me, I started out the year with no money, $0. Because you're paying my entire budget out of the public safety. It's not sustainable
You report.
so far. I don't have no money, I don't have no money to pay the full bill of workman's comp. I got contract services due right now, $33,000 that was due in January. I don't have money to pay the bill. We talked about this earlier before this was, when this was addressed, of putting all my money, my budget out of public safety, but there was no money up front to start with. So we're already behind the 8 ball, so to speak. Does that make sense? Well, as when I work it, I can't ever breathe this thing on, so. Contract service is $32,265. I got a bill here due from Zerker. It's past due $32,321.50. They're paid up front, have been every year. I don't have money to pay them.
What was that last one, Sam?
This bill is due
32,000 what?
$321.50. We get $254,000 every month. We got a spreadsheet here, which you should have, we gave you back when this budget was passed by the council, $2,990,000. We got a spreadsheet that we put so much in each line item every month. Supplies, so on and so forth, every month. Contract services, the total for the year is $33,265. We put $2,700 a month into contract services. As you can see, it takes several months for us to get a cash balance to pay certain bills. I don't have the money to pay these contract services. I'm not gonna have the money to pay the workman's comp bill. Workman's comp for us is $57,297 a year. We're allocated $4,774 a month for workman's comp. Now, it all comes out in the end. At the end of the year, the money will be there, but as of right now, I won't have the money to pay workman's comp. I won't have money to pay all the liability insurance or the group insurance on a quarterly fashion. So I'd like for the council to look at this, and I'll come back to you in March, but you're just gonna have to appropriate money in order for me to pay these bills. You're gonna get it back at the end of the year, but I need money up front because I started with $0. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, so definitely a cash flow concern.
Yes, big cash flow concern.
So, and I know this only includes certain transactions up to the 14th, but the balance in Fund 1170 is $251,000. Again, we don't know what kind of expenses, like where that puts you up to, but with that kind of balance, the payroll and operations and a March distribution, have you crunched those numbers to see?
Yeah, that
Where March-
$200-some thousand balance that Jim gave you, I think Jim for all he's done for us, is not accurate. We paid claims, multiple claims. So that $200-some thousand balance, I don't know where it's coming from for sure, because I know Jim printed off, that our expenses in January, he asked me, he said, well, you didn't spend very much money. A lot of them was zero that was spent, and I went back and looked at that, and I thought, that's not accurate. It says we haven't spent no money in medical. Yeah, we had, I paid out $24,000 in medical.
So is it just a timing thing? Because the only thing I'm going off of at the moment is just the fund report from our system.
Sure.
But, you know, this was run on 6 o'clock tonight, but that, you know, there's a point where certain claims are not gonna be included in that may be in the pipeline.
There are claims that are be pending for the commissioners meeting on the 21st, and that balance will barely get 2 more payrolls done
Okay.
for him before his next allotment comes in.
Let me ask you this.
So there's no
So it'll be
extra.
pretty thin at the beginning of March.
Is there anything in your budget line that is paid at the end of our financial year that we could look at a transfer being done between funds and free up money for?
This is cash.
Well, our biggest thing is gonna be one, contractual services. Now, our medical contract services, we've got it allocated, and what we're getting, we can pay them every month, what we're getting, because we set that allocation aside. But workman's comp, group insurance, liability insurance are big numbers.
Yeah, no.
And it would take us all year to get that money just to pay the bill. Because as you know, our vehicle rotation's $120,000 when we only get $10,000 a month. So I had to borrow $80,000 from jail housing just to buy 2 vehicles, and had to buy the other one on our own. And that money, you'll get that money back, but you won't get it till December 31st. It's an internal loan, but it gets paid back. But the problem we have is cash flow. I don't have no cash flow. You know, so I can come to you in March and here, I'm gonna tell you no bad news. But come to you in March, we're gonna have bills that's gotta be paid. Once we get our March settlement, I can deduct January, February, March, let you know what we're gonna need. But you're gonna need a lump sum of money. I'm talking $200,000.
So should we go ahead, to get ahead of the March regular meeting, should we go ahead maybe, Jim, and have a resolution drafted for an internal loan up to an appropriate amount?
It's not, the internal loan, there's not gonna be, I guess, if you're talking about maybe lead or a fund like that or something like that.
Yeah, you would use a fund that does have the cash, that's not obligated, it could be your jail lit, or it could be jail housing, but whatever's appropriate, there need to be a resolution for that, and then, but we can get that on the agenda for our March meeting, so.
Well, Jim said workman's comp will all come due at one time, I believe it's workman's comp. Liability insurance is gonna be on the quarter. So you're talking, I'm talking 60, 70, 80, 90, $140,000 plus my contract services, roughly $200,000 is going to come due in March. We won't have it.
330,000 in
Nick,
No, I think Anton, you're on target, because I think something we do not want to see is penalties paid on these vehicles.
Yeah.
I've seen that in the past, and that's unfair, that we could do this internal, transfers, sign these, whatever we need to do, getting the money, because I don't want to see us pay one dime in penalties.
Well, the State Board of Accounts has made it perfectly clear, I know Michelle, they talked to me multiple times. Do not run one of your funds in the red. You can't, so
What is the fund?
in March, I'll come to you with
Facility.
the amount, the bare minimum amount that we're going to need, but it's gonna be substantial.
Yes,
So you probably need to think about between now and March where you wanna draw this money from, because it's gonna be at least $200,000.
Well, I just added up them three that you got, and it was 122,883, is that the one that's behind now?
Well, you got the contract services, which is $33,265. Workman's comp's gonna be $57,297. Did you say liability?
And then the 32,321.50.
Yes. Did you say,
Liabilities by quarter.
so liability is quarter, so you take the 30, 39, 43,000 for liability insurance. $55,000 for group insurance.
So, well, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we authorize, the auditor and Jim to draft a loan, internal loan document, and work with the sheriff on the appropriate dollar amount for that. And I would suggest the correctional facility, because currently, at least of the time of this report, it had $678,000 in it. You're gonna have a March payment in that, and you do take in a lot more than you spend out of that, so cash there is probably okay, if that's appropriate. That's my motion for that. Give them the flexibility to put that together for our March meeting.
I think we need to study that a little bit, because I know next Monday we have a meeting, a public hearing on the jail project, which, I don't want to be bearing bad news to anybody, but I do have a concern that I want to bring up, and the meeting is next Monday, right? Correct. We have Darmon, RQAW, Mr. Peters coming down for the meeting. Here's something that concerns me, and if I'm wrong, tell me, Sam, you're wrong, because I've been wrong twice already today. The county has an outstanding debt of $1 million, give or take a few dollars. My concern is not only the department head trying to move forward with the jail project, we're talking about raises, we're talking about bridges and roads and everything, is the fact that, and I'm not pointing fingers at nobody, so nobody take this personal, please, believe me, I thank God for his blessings. You got a debt and payroll clearing of $510,882. You got a community crossing grant debt of $448,942. There's also an outstanding loan of $189,000. Here's my concern. Last year, we spent all year working on budgets, meeting like the judges said, all of us coming together, working together as a group to see what we could do to cut not only staff, money from one line item to another. Everybody did that last year. I wanna know what the county's plan is on paying these debts. We paid ours. A lot last year, and we all worked together paying our debts and cutting debts and stuff. But this is something that's not talked about. It's not brought up, it's not discussed much. Jim brings up good reports every month, sends them to me, he talks about our general funds in the black. Hallelujah, praise God. We go to borrow money for a jail project, they're gonna look at this, they're gonna ask questions. They were gonna know why their debts are not paid. Some of them's internal. So that's a question that don't need no answers tonight. But this is $1 million debt that is owed to this county. Some of it's internal. It needs to be paid. We need to right our wrongs and get our debts paid so we have that credibility when we go, if you're talking to employees, department heads, commissioners, and council, or to the bank. Does that make sense?
Sam, those, if you don't care, I'm going to speak on this a little bit, those internal debts have to be paid internally. It has been spoken with State Board of Accounts, and more than likely, we're talking about a 30-year payment plan internally to get those debts to go away. We don't have the cash to just say, here, we're gonna fix it.
And
It's internally, we don't owe anybody except for ourselves,
Right.
if that makes any sense. But with the cash balances that we have, the revenue that we have coming in does not support us to where we can just go, I mean, we can't do raises, we can't build jails, we can't pay off our debts, the money's just not there.
well, I agree with you, but what I'd like to see from the council is we pay our claims every 2 weeks or every month, have to pay our debt. I'd like to see something set up from the council that shows that these debts are gonna be paid. Internal or not, it doesn't look good on a report when you go try to borrow money for a jail project. But if we have some sort of a plan, something laid out that says we're gonna do this, this, and this, that's better than not having no plan at all.
And I'm gonna speak out of turn one more time, Sam. We're probably looking at getting through this year before that's gonna happen, and the reason I say that is, we kind of come into 2022 with the plan that we're gonna hope that got a zero balance, or we're pretty well evened up at the end of this year with nothing in the red. So there's no way that can be predicted at this time until we get through the 2022 budget and see where we're at. Hopefully we have cash balance at the end of the year, that's the whole plan of all this. But right now, there's no way to tell Greg, because Greg's gonna pay a big chunk of that out of highway budget.
And I'm not pointing fingers, right, don't you know that.
And it's not Greg's fault, it's previous bookkeeping that got us here.
But nevertheless, it looks bad
Sure
on the
does.
report. Because when we go to the jail meeting next Monday, we're gonna talk about the same song and dance we've talked about for the last 6, 7 years. About the jail project. That we know it's gonna cost us $26 million. We know we got a huge liability issue going on at the jail as we sit here tonight. A big problem that we're addressing. The fact of it is, the taxes, there's no more tax. If the public remembers 3 years ago, we sat right out here in this floor and passed the community, the correctional facility tax. It's a 22-year tax. We're into the 2nd year already. We told the public, there's a public safety tax coming to help fund this project. The public agrees, let's do it now. The public safety tax came, now you're paying my budget out of it. There's no money for public safety going to the correctional facility tax to pay for the jail project. This is not sustainable for the county past this year. You won't make it. Writing's on the wall. The jail project went from 14 million to 26 million. Nobody in the public wants to spend 26 million on jail, I know. But it's gonna cost you more. Every year it goes by, it costs you more and more for the jail project. So for me, looking at the taxpayer out here, we told them we're gonna connect the correctional facility money to public safety tax. The money that you have saved in the correctional facility right now, that we're getting $70-some thousand a month. If you would've took $600,000 of the public safety tax money and put it with that, you could've done your jail project and paid for it in 20 years, which the correctional facility money was allocated for.
I wanna speak to something you said, Sam. You said money out there that no one's talking about. I will tell you that Jim does include all the funds that are over and has to us every time he said, I mean, we know what funds still need to be taken care of, and so, I mean, it's unless something's recently he's left it out of, I don't know where, you know, it's hidden from plain sight or anything. I mean, we're very aware of those.
I don't mean it was hidden from nobody. I mean, there's not much discussion going on about it in meetings. I just wanna see some sort of plan set up to pay these debts back, whether it's 10-year, 20 or 30-year plan. That's kind of irrelevant. Just have to have the plan. But we're facing the music on the jail project, and we all know that. And I just want the public to know that the money that you're paying my budget with this year, public safety money, which you're getting $3 million, it can't go into 2023. If the jail falls or has a major issue, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. That's the reason commissioners, you know, we're having a meeting with the public to see which way the commissioners want to move. Now, we know the money's not there at the moment, but you're going to have to take some public safety money that you're getting now to put with your correctional facility money in order to get the jail project off the ground.
What is the timeline for that commitment with the jail presentation Monday night? What, is there a certain amount that's gonna be due this year to pay for moving forward with the jail project, if you use out of that?
But we paid Garmon and RQAW and Mr. Peters and some of the other people, we were paid them what we owed them.
So your current balance plus the 71,000 a month that you're bringing in, you'll have about 1.2 million at the end of the year. So if you borrow out of this, is there gonna be enough left in that to move forward with the jail project?
I mean, that's, I'm glad you brought that. One of the last things we hate to do is borrow from the correctional facility money. That's already established. You need to hang on to that as much as you can, because if you're getting ready to face some maybe potentially pretty serious repairs at the jail now, that's gonna take that some of that correctional facility money.
And you only have 70,000 left in your jail housing fund. So if there is a real emergency, where would you come? And there's only 333,000, I think, in the jail lit fund. You really don't have any place else, but that
You mentioned a couple times that you guys are getting ready to experience or whatever. Is there something going on that needs to be brought up so we got a warning? You know, that
We talked to the commissioner about, we got a severe problem with some gas lines and stuff like that we may have to completely reroute. We did some emergency repairs here the other day. We had 4 leaks inside the boiler room. Pretty serious. We got some foundation issues that started out like this. Now they're this big. We got some structural situations going on that we are talking with the commissioner.
Keep us updated.
Yes, sure, that's possible.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion on the floor. I would second that motion. Maybe we can go ahead and carry through with the motion. I'm sorry, Greg, I just,
Oh,
Before
well, that's
we
okay,
forget-
but I can't stand here and not speak to what we're talking about tonight, so whenever you're done with your motion, I'd like to speak.
So,
Okay, so we're at the point where we can discuss before. is
Right.
that- So I think, was your motion for community correction or?
So the motion was to allow the auditor and Jim and the sheriff to get, where did the sheriff go?
I'm sorry.
Oh, there. The three of them to get together and draft an ordinance for us for an internal loan. Now, I suggested the correctional facilities because at the moment, as of this report, it had about $670,000 balance in it. And it's gonna grow even more quickly here in the next month from a revenue standpoint. That appears to be the healthiest source to look at. But, you know, open to ideas, but I think that would probably be the best at the moment. Again, it's an internal loan, so it's gonna, the money's gonna come back from the regular operations out of the sheriff lit. But, so it'd be reconciled within a year or before the end of this year. If you're talking $200,000-$300,000 for this loan, I would think it would work.
How much is in lit edit?
In the regular lit edit is $333,000, somewhere in there. Keep in mind, you've already given him $80,000, so by the time your December payment comes in early in the month, $280,000 of that is gonna have to pay back these two funds. So you're gonna have to meet all of your budget and your line items by the end of the year, by the end of November. Cause you're not gonna have a whole lot of extra, because the other $80,000 that you borrowed from the jail housing has to be paid back too. And you're not gonna gain any cash balance between now and then. It's gonna have to be that last payment you get in December that's gonna pay these loans back.
Yeah, the jail housing will be paid back in December, that you borrow from the correctional facility.
Can we ask Jim?
To pay these insurance, stuff like that, it'll have to be paid back in December as well, it can't go past the end of the year first anyway.
Madam Chair, I call for
could we have like, I mean, in the motion, does it have to be specified what fund that's coming out of?
Go ahead and make an amendment.
You would have to.
Could that be,
Cause we have to do a public hearing and.
what's your opinion, Jim?
Well, if you wanna make it simply just an amendment to, any fund to be presented. So you're gonna have to vote on this, there'd have to be a public hearing. So if you wanna leave it open to look at lit edit, which has $333,000 minus $200,000, is $130,000 for the entire year.
Just take it out of the correctional facility, we'll just take the gamble on that.
Okay, so correction, if it's on a correctional facility, then we pay back. Points have been made very, very clearly, so we're all the same. Right now, that would be a loan more than the amount of the December distribution. So for the paying back, the sheriff would have to have his budget completely done, so roughly by November 15th, all square, and then the remainder left in November, and then the entire December is going to be used to be paying back loans. So that's kind of where this would be at. But yes, I will have the transfer paperwork ready for you at the March meeting, that'll be no problem. If the motion was for the auditor, myself and the sheriff get together for the amount, definitely we'll do that, and then we would take it out to jail correctional.
And I mean, of course, we'll be continuing to monitor this month to month. You know, again, things may perform a little bit better, they might perform worse, but it would be something that we know as April hit, May hit, June, you'd want to keep on top of that, so, yeah.
Greg, is it all right until after the vote, or is it something?
I can wait until I vote.
Okay, let's call for a vote. Oh,
Sheila.
okay, sorry, Sheila.
If this can't be put together until the March meeting, the liability and workman's comp is gonna be due before then.
I
right?
I was thinking, wouldn't it be the end of March, the actual bill?
March the 20th, something like that. I think it's later in the month.
It's later.
We get our draw March 10th,
But it is-
so
Yeah, it's.
30
It's
weeks.
gonna be close.
Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah.
Okay, will that work? All right, all in favor? Motion carried. Okay, Craig,
Okay, the sheriff brings up tonight in regard to two of the funds. One of them is community crossing fund, one of them's a loan for a dump truck. You go back to 2019. In 2019, I went to the State Board of Accounts and said the money's not there. I don't know where the money was in regard to what fund it was in, but I went to the State Board of Accounts. This is something I made this board aware of, I made the Board of Commissioners aware of. State Board of Accounts wasn't interested in talking to me then because they were auditing 2 years prior. So now, when we come to 21, a problem that I tried to take care of in 2019, we have to take care of now, and basically, I was told I was wrong. Well, it wasn't wrong, it's not right. And this board was told in an open meeting, and you'll have to look back at the minutes, but I believe it was Councilman Neff that asked, was the dump truck loan paid? And they were told yes. And this was back during a time when we didn't have access in our own departments to allow to see where our finances was. So we're dealing with something that occurred a long time ago that the highway department, my department who keeps the books, brought to the attention of the commissioners and the council. And no, we were wrong, we either weren't right, and even went to the State Board of Accounts. I upset a lot of people when I went to the State Board of Accounts.
I said it there.
But, turns out, it was correct. Now, we do know that it has to be paid internally, but it was paid out of highway department funds, so we gotta figure out how to pay our own selves back. But we did know. We knew in 2019, and nobody listened. Brought up today what we're gonna do with it, meant to no one, but I addressed this in 19. And I think it's only fair to say that when we're talking about, hey, it's gotta be fixed. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want Greg to know, and I think Greg knows I'm not picking on Greg, by no means. But we can sit here and talk about stuff till you're blue in the face, people. The fact of it is, we owe, whether it's internal or external. We got future projects coming down the road, it's gonna cost millions of dollars. You got a courthouse here, it's got some issues too, I'm sure, you know. We just need to band together. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Until we sit down at the round table and have a discussion. Thank God for his blessings, ask him to help us intervene, get things straightened out. We're running a course that we can't win.
And
I
I think-
absolutely agree with that. When we all sit down together,
Mhm.
we'll solve this problem.
I think that's a,
We need to pray about it, whether you're religious or not, makes no difference, I've said it, say it again, maybe the last time. Pray about it, come together as a team, forgive and forget, repent, and let's move on, let's get things, let's get the county back on track, the way it should be.
I agree. I agree that we need more, input all together because it's gonna take all of us working together to move forward.
And that's taxpayers as well,
Right.
individuals alike, yes.
Okay, let's move on to EMS. Chris? You have anything?
I just wanted to bring up that I've talked with Polly and Anton and working on some wage issues with my guys, trying to take care of things internally. I'm gonna sit down with Nick, so, and I'm gonna present to you guys, as soon as I get some numbers squared away. Some raise issues with our people, so that's really all I have.
You can make it the first, can't you?
I can make it what?
The March 1st?
I suppose.
Okay.
We'll try not to
Thank
make
you,
it too
Chris.
long. All right, the salary ordinance confirmations.
We already did it. Done.
We did, didn't we? All right. Any elected official and department comments that have not been made?
I sent everybody an email, I think it was maybe last week, I don't know if you got it. And I'll make this real fast. My ear totally on one of the people in my office. He does like programming, he does our web design, he does all the stuff like, and she like, gave you, IT stuff. If you kind of look in there just real fast, the first, like after the first page, we have the QR codes for everybody in the office. I don't, most people have seen them at a restaurant, you kind of look at it and then it takes you to the internet, so it does whatever. So he's done that for our appointment cards. The next few pages, so if you look through there, all that is programming. All that is programming. What that comes out to look like when it's done, when it's does it very nicely, just asks a question, it comes up to our home detention eligibility checklist. That's just Owen County's. He created that in our software. The next one is, we have, the counselor does a PTR assessment. All that has to be done in there. And then the very last page is what the end result is. I think, I don't know if you guys know how much a programmer or web designer costs, their fees. I would like to ask for, like in the specialty, that for a Quest administrator, because Quest is our database that he has to design all this stuff, that he get a supplement of $5 for his pay to be our programmer. If you look online now for web designers probably make $32 an hour. Programmers that do this can be up to, I don't know, you guys know, probably $100. And I should have been here a year ago, my fault, because he's been doing that for this long.
Are you saying $5 per hour?
$5 extra per hour, correct. So I will come, I would, if you can, if you can't, March 1st. But, a person with these skills and this ability is not on the job description. It's not on anywhere, but like in every department probably there too, has a person that's doing much more than anybody ever realizes that they're doing. But this skill set is expensive. If I had to try to hire this out, it would be awful. To be honest, he has an interview, and so that's why I'm here tonight, I will just be honest. And my fault for Kevin, and Kevin, my fault that I didn't do this before.
So now, if he didn't do it, who would do it?
We have to hire it.
You would,
No, but I mean, I don't know how to do it.
I mean, it has to be done, is that right?
We have tons of forms in our database that has to be done. They change. The court, we have court reports that have changed, petitions to revoke probation, warrant instructions, all of that kind of changes with time and different things need to be added. If we didn't have that, I don't even know what to say. Fourth Base does great there, hardware, IT. Program is software, IT, totally different thing, totally different.
Yeah, you'd probably have to hire out with a firm and pay a pretty
Exactly.
expensive price.
Exactly.
She doesn't have that information, she can't do a grant. the community corrections, because that's what keeps her in compliance, is all that data entry information and what's assigned. I just had a meeting last week with pretrial release, we're gonna start adding more programs to it. I guarantee you none of us possess the skill sets necessary that he does, and so she's combining a position that's already there to make it profitable for staying. It's gonna hurt us to fix the other game. You're gonna find somebody else for sure.
And I'm sure like the sheriff's department and all other departments, you know, we get something that they change, we want these stats in a week. You just gotta try to figure out how to get those stats. And the first page is like our administrative assistant, and I kind of did this out to like medium range and all that. It's gonna cost me $20,000 more a year. I have $10,000 already right now sitting in CTP that's already been budgeted, and we have $10,000 in pretrial grant that we've already got. So the money this year is done. And here's what, right? How are you gonna do it next year? We looked at our things, and community corrections project income is at $20,000 more January 1 than it was last year. So we will have that, so we will find it. We are not asking the general fund any money. We are asking to pay for it out of our funds.
Is that something that we need to check on March 1st, and you'll have to come up with a job description?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little separate from the bigger project, but like all positions, you know, you wanna have those different components.
You'd have to have a job to come up with a job description.
And I don't want Kevin's position to have this, because the next person, I guarantee you, I'm not gonna be able to hire somebody with his skill set for that. So I want it kind of separate, so if somebody would have it, does, but, we can't hire anybody for Kathy. We have not found a good person for Kathy Hendricks' position. We just can't, we just can't. So we've been out of that position so yeah, and when I said our office is gonna crumble, our office is gonna crumble. We have to try to retain the people that we have.
And I understand, and that's why we wanted to set up the wage committee, so we do have input and that you're, able to bring that forward, and, because I know each department is having their own issues and that they're having to deal with that.
Yes.
And this is something that, we could have a committee and actually get together and talk about it and bounce ideas where we're able to kind of have a little bit more leeway than we would have in a council meeting where we can kind of, hash out ideas. And that's all we do. I think that's my thing is it would be, I think, more beneficial and more productive if, we do have meetings that the wage committee can get together and actually that's all we focus on, versus all of the other council things, and then bring it back to the council. And I realize that, this is something that you would like to see done in a timely fashion. We just can't do this tonight. It's something that we're gonna have to look over and, study and.
Can, at least if we can say, okay, we're gonna meet March 1st. The next council meeting is gonna be March 14th. Now we agree this is what we should do, can the March 14th meeting, can we know? Because sometimes for us, it feels like it gets kicked and it's
Yeah,
kicked.
and I don't wanna do that.
If they got a position
Right.
that they can have for $28, whatever, I'm not gonna wait for you to keep doing it, So is that a I just need to know, because if it's gonna keep kicking, I can't,
Yeah.
I don't want to say something that's not gonna be true.
Right.
So you'd like to have an affirmation to that fact?
Right.
And so you're saying to us that you have the money to cover it for 22, should have the money to cover it for 23 as well.
Correct.
What do you see in 24?
And no general fund, all just, it's gonna be out of our funds.
I still feel like, and I'm totally on board, but I just want to see, this is why.
You're gonna poll the council tonight in regards to that. I know there's things that gotta be done, but I think she's wanting to go back and say, hey, it's in the workings. I don't wanna see her lose this employer or employee. Is that what you're asking?
Kevin's here.
I mean, if that's what,
So what are you proposing?
well, I'm asking if you want to poll us, are we in support of it? I have no problem with it, providing it will not affect county general, and Donald said it will not. So I mean, if that's what you want to know,
So, I mean, it would be absolutely no money out of county
Absolutely
general.
not. It's out of Fund 123 and 1123 and 9155.
Well, the worst trouble of it is we can't do that for, David, you're not gonna do theirs out of general fund too. That wouldn't be fair to
No, we
them.
tabled, I mean, I told her to wait, happy, because this kind of office personnel, this guy is such a different specialty that, that's why I said he's gonna let it, because I know what it's gonna do to our department, Sam's department, if he goes as well, so that was a different scenario, she's never gonna ask another for the general fund, ours is different, and so we're not asking for it either, we cover it, when we put ourselves in with kind of the auditor and some of the other officers, he's a totally different fund.
I think sometime back, we said, if you could make a deal with the council, bring it to us and we'll look at it. I think we're gonna see crises like this in all the offices, but when they come to us and it is neutral for the county general, I don't know why I would be against it, and of course, I'm just one vote, okay? I spoke my piece.
What about you, Burl?
Well, that's the same offer that the judge had, you know. I think we need to, I mean, I hate to postpone it. I mean, we can say that we're gonna consider it and think about it, but I don't think that we ought to promise in stone, you know, it goes, that's the same thing that we're putting the judge on.
And this is why, you know, cause I would like to have this in hand, you know, like the Wednesday before our Monday meeting, so
We can
we
discuss it.
can, you know, kind of, because I don't wanna make rash decisions, and I really, really do not wanna kick the can down the road, because it does need to be addressed and considered, you know, not coming out of, you know, county general and all that. And I would be in favor of making a, you know, determination on our next meeting, you know, definitely, and not kick it down the road. But I also think this is something that needs to be discussed and, looked at, and that's my opinion. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I'm with the majority.
Yeah, I think we just need more time. There's a lot of moving parts. I think we need to focus back to the broader project in our March 1st meeting and then address it eventually, but I think it's a little premature at the moment.
So just in my mind, because I think, okay, if it would be approved then March 7th, 14th, or whatever that date is, then does it have to go to does it have to go to the paper and then come back again in April? And then, so we just, how many, I mean, because I know I've been sitting here through,
If
so
the stars align, it would be still months. I mean, it's just the nature of the
Have to do an additional
process.
appropriation for any funds throughout the year, anything that is above what was budgeted.
Okay, but if it is budgeted already,
Under budget.
it's in the budget already.
Then it would just be a matter of voting on it during the meeting.
Well, but I don't, I apologize, and I'm not wanting to get a raise or anything like that, but if it's already budgeted, why isn't it being paid that now?
Because in 2021, when we came through the budget kind of things, we did not know if we were still gonna have to cut the 20% or not cut the 20%. And so I said, if you remember, I have one hoping and one not, so I had two different fund kind of things, do you remember that? So the CTP was already just, the CTP just stayed. The CTP, I don't think has ever had any budget line item in there. It was just put it, I mean, because you guys didn't know what you were gonna do yet. So I had to try to come up with my 20%. So that's what my 20% was. Does that make sense?
So it's just a matter of appropriating it and matching it up
You
with
need a
the
new
job
salary ordinance.
description and a salary ordinance, so it's already there.
So it's already budgeted in,
It's there. So then on the March 17th, if it is approved, then it could go ahead and be done then instead of having to come back in April?
I would think.
14th, but yes,
14th,
there's a
sorry.
salary ordinance and
Maybe transfers,
to-
probably not so much appropriation.
because you're moving some extra monies into there, or you would still be, if you're increasing it, you would be increasing some of like those amounts. So it would, again, you would have, and to match a job description, so
So the
job description and
the
salary.
ordinance, I totally understand those, but since it's kind of in there, then we wouldn't maybe have to come back in April. And you can look, I mean, you've got probably a lot up there. It's 11.
Yeah, I think the thing that does slow things down is the, if appropriations needed
Okay.
out of a fund because of the
Doing
advertisement.
Transfers, and they would be within the same series, and if not, it still could be addressed at the March 14th meeting. So
Okay.
pull your numbers together, make sure he has the adjustments to do the salary
We can help you with some
confirmation
numbers.
Okay.
and be working on a job description that can be
Okay.
adopted at that same meeting on the 14th too.
Okay. So technically, if it's in there, it could be done March 14th. Thank you.
Mhm. Public comments, and we're gonna make this short.
It's hard for me. Bernadette, Jackson Township, I got two issues. Number one was the thing that you had about, the Wednesdays at noon, to be on the next agenda. Now, that is in lieu of someone trying to give a speech or show something versus public comments. I don't want that to.
No, this is the department heads coming with something that they want us to, vote
Number
on.
two.
That's it.
Right,
Okay, number two, the issue is coming up tomorrow on the so-called comprehensive plan, all right? And what I wanted to tell the council members, from Mr. Public right here, is that there's gonna be a tremendous quantity, all right, of money that's available that looks like free money, all right? That's the fish hook. So the comprehensive plan is like a big, huge hook, and they're gonna put a big, juicy worm on there for us. A lot of free money, a lot of grants, and all kinds of good stuff. I mean, I've been reading this now for 3 or 4 weeks. It's really super big, the amount of money they're gonna give you, all right? The problem is, it's what comes with it that's really, really bad. And I have a presentation I hope to be able to pass out and give tomorrow, so that everybody understands what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying that beware of the fish hook with the great big juicy money worm on it, because it's not free money. That's it.
okay, great.
What meeting is he talking about tomorrow?
They,
Comprehensive plan meeting that's being presented by Marcy and that group of people is
open to whoever.
here tomorrow night at
Public.
6:30.
I thought it was some kind of a training thing.
Yeah, it's like a training type.
I've got another meeting.
Have we been invited?
So is there a meeting, there is a meeting?
Yes, everybody should have gotten an email.
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
I
there
think it was
was-
for, did.
Local officials, stakeholders, something, yeah.
It's at, 6:30, and it's here,
Here,
yeah,
and who's heading it up?
the,
Economic
It's the
development.
plan commission's regular meeting, and then on the agenda is an hour and a half training of people who are working on developing comprehensive plan. So it's a training session.
Okay.
I plan to go, but I may go fishing instead.
It'll be a regular meeting, and then we will turn it over to Mars and the comprehensive plan folks to basically present their information, take public comment. This is one of our opportunities to get public comment, since we're told that's a shortcoming. So we're getting it out there for people to be able to find out what it's all about. And it'll be beneficial for us as well. But it will be a regular meeting, so we'll start out as a meeting and then we'll pass it to them.
and the public is,
Yeah, the public's
encouraged to
invited.
come.
It's been on Facebook, it's been on the economic development site.
Maybe.
And then it'll be conducted like a meeting, we'll close the meeting at the end, but yeah.
Okay,
And that's tomorrow.
quickly.
One quick point, when it was on the computer, the so-called survey for this, when I tried to get on the computer, you do Nest deal, to try to get on there, it was a Facebook thing, and since I don't do Facebook, I never could give my survey. So there's a lot of people, because it's on Facebook, they don't do Facebook, I don't do Facebook. So we need to have those surveys available before these meetings.
I can get you it's actually through a website, not a.
I couldn't find it.
How about after the meeting, I'll give you the link?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's all the public comments, let's move on. Do you have anything else, Jim?
Do you want to do the reimbursement mileage ordinance or not? If that's
That is
available,
fair.
if you like it, you can do that.
So the state had increased
Yeah, this came from.
their rate.
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
just a little brief background. This came from Don Appropriation, that they had increased the rate to 41 cents. She had indicated to the auditor forwarded that to me. So, looking back to some real quick research, in 2011, the ordinance of 2011-2022, was the ordinance that had the mileage. For some reason, it has a rate of 44 cents per mile. I don't know if that's actually been paid or that was the state rate. But in any case, that was out there in 2011. Now, there's whole other ordinance, not related to that, that's in the travel area, and it talks about two things. One is just you pay the state rate, which would be fine, but also in that ordinance, it talked about 28 cents and 32 cents. So the only recommendation I had is, if you wanted this, is just here's an ordinance, it's 41 cents, and then it could just be passed around to all the departments. Now, I think you would want to revisit this each year if there's a change, but literally it takes less than 5 minutes to plug this in, and it'd take me less than 5 minutes to read it. But the only reason this would be maybe more preferable, you could actually just copy this, send this out to every single department, then everyone would know that the rate is 41 cents.
I'll move that we approve said form.
Okay, you gotta let me read it. You have to hear the reading. This is ordinance number 2022-008, an ordinance by Owen County Council establishing reimbursable mileage rate for county travel. Whereas it's been determined it shall be necessary to reimburse certain Owen County officials and travel for county business prescribed by law by the state of Indiana. Now will be it ordained by the Owen County Council the following: Section 1, mileage rate. The Owen County Council hereby adopts a mileage reimbursement rate of 41 cents per mile. Section 2, procedure. A person seeking reimbursement of this ordinance must file an itemized claim with the county auditor each month under Indiana Code 36262. Section 2 specifically says a person who has a claim against the county shall file an invoice with the county auditor. The auditor shall present the invoice to the executive and shall examine the merits of the claim. The executive shall allow any claim that it finds valid. Section 3, repeal. The ordinance supersedes all ordinances or parts of ordinances or in conflict with the ordinance. All prior ordinance and resolutions in conflict, inconsistent herewith, or hereby expressly repealed, passed and adopted by the Owen County Council on a regular meeting on the 14th day of February of 2022. Owen County Council: Andy Wood, Earl Keith, Anton Knapp, Nick Robinson, Polly Chester, Chuck Cass, and Amy Casebeer, attested by Sheila Reed's auditor.
So having read and listened to this, ordinance, I'm gonna move that we approve it.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Motion carried. All
If the
right.
state drops it back down, they will also let us know that, and then we would have to just do another ordinance at that time to lower it back. Now, this will eat into some of the 2022 budget numbers for those persons that do, so I don't think it's gonna be a whole lot that we have to worry about additional appropriations, but, because there's not really that many that drive on a daily.
Okay, on to Sheila, you have any, okay. Any council comments?
Yes, I want to thank Jim above all for helping us get us back in black and coaches us along. I do appreciate that. And it wasn't nobody's personal thing on the council that we got this way, but we're straightening it out. And I appreciate that very much.
I concur.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Make a motion to do.
Okay.
So real quick,
Okay.
the AIC has its West Central District meeting on April the 5th. So
Okay.
put that on your calendar.
We need to have the auditor.
Yeah, she'll probably have a flyer at some point here soon, so if you're interested in going to that, put that down. Also, generally, if you could reach out to your state legislators, particularly your senators, concerning the business personal property tax issue. encourage them to make sure that local revenue doesn't take a hit from that, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Opportunity to bend the ear.
Give me that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and,
Make a motion.
there we go.
Chris?
We are done.
Chris?
Did you second that?
We did with you.